Hello.
How's it going?
It's good. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. I feel like it's been such a long time.
It has been a long time. I feel like we may be different people since the last time we
Uh,
chatted.
definitely so. Um, yeah. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm so scattered. I just got off another
Oh
Zoom.
no.
I'm like, I need to pull up what I sent you so I even know what I'm talking about.
No worries. No worries.
So how's everything going?
Things are going pretty well. Yeah, I'm still very new to this like running my own business thing, but I'm kind of obsessed with it. So, it's fun.
What's your favorite part?
As of right now, I'm gonna say, I don't know if I always will feel this way, but like learning to market myself, I've never done that before. And I'm trying to approach marketing as like psychology, like what do people like? What are they interested in? And trying to take it from that angle because I've never done it. So it's a new avenue, but it's good. It's good.
I feel like that's such a good way of doing it. I always tell people in order to market, you have to understand people. So, like, psychology is like, such a relevant degree. Everyone thinks it's just if you want to be a therapist or something, but like, really, everyone should do psychology if you don't understand how
Absolutely.
humans work. Like,
Yes. And because I feel like a lot of people don't give the traditional like clues,
yeah,
like for example, I just, have sold a bunch of online courses and was like, hello, does anyone like it? Like, is it, but no one really told me like straight out until I started asking and was like, oh,
yeah,
like you need to be prompt. Okay. And you have great things to say, but I kind of just assumed you would tell me, but I wouldn't just tell somebody,
right,
so.
totally. Like, and the key, I think, is just like surveying and asking and getting feedback, and like, we don't ever know anything unless we ask, right? So like,
Yes.
we always assume that someone will tell us when they're upset or when they're happy or all of these things, but like, that like very rarely
Oh,
happens.
oh no, you froze. Okay, there you are. There you are.
I know, I was like, oh, you froze, what happened? My internet is terrible. I'm having a Comcast guy come today, but I'm like, I've literally had back-to-back Zoom calls. I'm like, of course it's today. My
Of
internet is
course.
not getting it together, which makes what I do for work very difficult. But
Uh-huh. Yes.
a girlfriend of mine recommended this book called The Like Switch. It's
Ooh.
crazy. Yeah, it was actually written by an ex FBI agent, and it's like intended for influencing, attracting, and winning people over, because one of the things like in marketing is all about psychology, and part of that is like really understanding how people tick. And
Yes.
really, at the end of the day, like, marketing done right is like it's all of those things, right? Like, you're influencing people, you want to win them over. If you're doing it right, you're doing it authentically, and all of that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah. It's a learning curve for me because I've never had to like sell myself. Like I've done that in interviews, but I'm great with in person, like one-on-one, but I feel like, putting it on a website and being like, go look at my website. It's like, oh, did you like it?
totally. Well, I feel like that's how I am with this new like Boss Babe segment. I want to start like, welcome to your first segment of Boss Babes. I'm so excited you're the first person to be on it with me, and as I work through what it looks like. But I felt like it's so important because one of the things that's been so instrumental to me in like marketing and stuff is the idea of women supporting other women. It doesn't matter how hard I've tried, men, I have found, just don't support women the way women need to be
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel
supported.
like even when they're trying to do their best, like it's just not.
Right. Like, we just speak different languages. And I mean, and that's true for everyone, right? Like,
Mhm.
we all have different love languages and work languages, but particularly between men and women. And I feel like there is like this stigma to it. And like, people are so afraid of supporting and bringing up other women because of competition. And I have just found in my career that collaboration over competition gets you so much further in
Oh my
life.
gosh. And this is, I grew up like thinking that like women were my competition, and not like necessarily bad in a bad way, but like I remember like being a younger woman and being like, oh, well, like you like that boy, well, I'm gonna make him my boyfriend situation, and just like, and he sucked, you know, in the end he always sucked. So like
he's like, it's funny the things that we do, especially with men, and we like, oh, it's like so often, right? Like when you hear about these terrible situations, women are so inclined to be like, well, that woman, oh my God, she's such a home wrecker.
mm-hmm.
And like, well, what about the husband? What about like the man? Like, why is your first inclination? Like, yeah, what's your first inclination about like the woman? And I just feel like the more we talk about it and the more we build each other up, whether you're in similar industries or different industries, like why not do some positive things to highlight other women?
Yes, I love it. I love it so much. Like I'm clinging on to that idea. I love it.
I'm like, and it's funny because when we first talked about it, it was like January.
I know.
I like can't believe it. But then like my boyfriend of 10 years and I broke up, and then literally that happened, and 3 weeks later COVID happened, and then I think everyone was like, what, you know?
Yeah.
What, you know, it's still almost a year into COVID and I still find myself going, what?
Yes.
What
yes. And like shifting and trying to like understand so many things on like a different level, and like things that I knew well prior, but now it's like, oh, so this is different. Like even Thanksgiving, it's like my dad wanted to come with a bunch of, or not Thanksgiving, for Christmas, my dad was coming with a bunch of people, and I was like, so I'm not comfortable. Like I love you, but I'm not comfortable. And just like navigating that whole thing. And it's like, gosh, I'm an adult, but it's weird because we're like trying all these new things.
Right. And it's just so wild because it's like everything's so political now. Like it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, 2020. You know, what are we going to think about when we look back on this time of our life?
Yeah, I literally remember thinking when Dan and I broke up, what am I gonna do? Like what? Like for so many years I felt like so comfortable building my business because we had a house that he owned, and like I was, you know, I'm like, okay, well if something happens, worst case, like I have this partner and we have
right.
like safety net, and then I'm like, oh no, I have to like move out and like give money to someone else, and like this is gonna be such a wild ride. And then I feel like it kind of blinked by because I'm like, oh, well, that was a really healthy, amicable breakup. And like now there's COVID, and like this is what you have to focus on because you just moved out and your living expenses all like increased, and like the income you thought you were going to have to like make more. Now you're just like, oh, am I going to be able to at least keep the income I was making?
Right.
I don't even think about like more income, and like, you know, yeah, it's just wild. So I feel like we should start at the beginning. Like, tell me who you are and what you do, and who people that I'm gonna like eventually share this with. Like,
yes, I'm Carrie, and I started the company Blooming with Care, and it initially started out as just like I'm a life coach that help women deal with the side effects of infertility. And I say side effects as like, you know, because if you've ever tried for a family and you weren't successful at it, it affects every aspect of your life. I always like to say I can't get or keep you pregnant, but I can keep you calm and collected while you try. And I started this because I am still currently trying to have a child, but my first like 4 or 5 years, because I'm on year 7 now, I was a wreck. I was a hot mess, and I didn't have anyone to talk to or like understand what I was feeling. And so I felt like when I did a lot of self-work on myself, I was like, other people need this. And so I decided to share it with other people. And I started out by doing just coaching online, and then I developed a curriculum, like a workbook that people can buy. And then recently I just launched some online courses that I've actually been getting a lot more positive feedback from, because number one, it's more accessible to people, it's much cheaper, and people can do it on their own pace, which is nice. So that's kind of Blooming with Care in a nutshell. And I just started in April, so I'm not even a year into it yet.
That's so amazing. So I feel like I'm like at that age, like 34, right? Where people are starting to, if they haven't already had kids, it's because they don't want them, or they're struggling with them, or some combination of the two of those, or they don't have a partner. You know, there's, I guess, a lot of reasons. So I've been around it a little bit more. It's shocking to me how little support there is for it, and how little people actually talk about it.
Yeah, and because like once I started talking about it, there were actually a lot of women in my life that were like, oh yeah, I did IVF, or I had to get help, or I had to take medication, which I was like, what? Why did you never tell me this? Like,
Yeah.
we've been trying for so long and no one has shared this with me. And so I felt like once I started really opening up about it, it's like, and it's a really vulnerable space to be in, you know? I personally put it all on myself of like, oh my God, it's me, my body. And technically in the beginning, it was my husband, his a low sperm count. But then we actually did get pregnant through IVF, and I carried my daughter for 8 months, but I developed a rare liver pregnancy disease that took my daughter's life, and I delivered her stillborn last year. But that disease is like, has like a 90% chance to come back again. So technically it's both of us. But like, and there's no way of knowing that, like before, you know, you go into that. So there's a lot of like weight and emotional, and it's like, I feel like it's this like small conversation that everyone's like, oh, are you having kids, or when are you going to have kids? And it's like, it's kind of a boring question, and I don't want to take away from people's children, but like for how often it's asked to me, I'm like, oh my God, like, how do I even answer this question? And then that's also a thing of like, do I tell you my whole story, or do I just say, oh, hopefully someday?
Yeah, I feel like people ask those questions so innocently, like, yes, oh, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? And like, it's just one of those things that I think really they don't realize how sensitive that question can really kind of be. Shoot, did I lose you? My internet connection is wonky. There you are. Okay. Yeah. I think it's shocking.
It's like a loaded question. It's such a loaded question that I feel like people don't. If you're not in it, you don't know. And that's one thing I feel like dealing with infertility has taught me about so many things of like, I'm like, ooh, let's be aware that maybe I don't want to hear the answer to this. Because if I'm going to ask this question, do I really want to hear the answer? Because it might not be good.
Right. And even like, and it's, even if it's not your body, even if it's just simply, I don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
I feel like people would ask Dan and I that all the time. And what am I going to say? Well, you know, we're not married, and maybe this is not the person I want to raise kids with. I might love them, but maybe he's not the father he's not the person I want for my child. Not saying that that's what it is, but like,
absolutely.
How do you respond to those questions? Like, oh, well, you know, actually we've been really contemplating having children, but because my body won't let me, or because like, I'm not sure about my partner, or because of one of a million other reasons, like, oh, okay, that wasn't what you were expecting. Yeah.
Right. And then it's weird, and you're like, well, you asked. So.
Right. Yeah. Or like, what am I going to say? Oh, we've been really thinking about it. Like, it's just none of your fucking business.
Exactly. And that is one of my favorite things I've learned. There's so many things is none of your fucking business. Like, if I'm even now, I don't really go to parties anymore, but like I'll do like Zoom hangouts, and it's like, I don't know, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? Or what was your favorite concert? Just trying to like ask more about that person, because also in general, a lot of mothers are like, I don't want to talk about my kids all the time. Like this, right. You know, there's more to this. And so I've really leaned heavily into that. And I just like showing up for women in a way that I technically needed and still do, honestly. And it was like taboo to talk about. And I remember like talking to a girlfriend saying like, I need someone to talk to about this. And she was like, well, why don't you start sharing your story? And I was like, no. And then it was like, well, why not?
It's amazing how much like, how hard it is to share those things. It's just like true authenticity, but like also opening up your own wounds and like allowing yourself to get to a level with people that is really difficult. But I feel like that's one of the things that makes your business so different. I mean, do you? I feel like that's what makes Blossom with Care like authentic. Like you have, you know, you're not someone coaching someone who's only experienced this in theory, right? Like
Yes, and I appreciate you saying that, because I do feel like when I talk with people, one of my favorite things now is people cut the crap real fast and they get very real quickly, and I'm like, oh, we're there, okay. But I do that. So I've always done that. I've been like kind of an oversharer my whole life, even though I think I share the right amount, but people are like, oh, that's a lot, and I'm like, well, it's me. And I do appreciate that when I like come in contact with people, they're like, okay, so like my dad died and I want to talk about it. I'm like, I feel very honored that you want to get there, and let's talk about it. Because, and this, I really work with women dealing with infertility, but a big part of that is grief. And I feel like everyone experienced grief. And if you haven't, you will. And so it's like that aspect of it has really changed my life, of like letting go of the life I thought I wanted to live, then losing my daughter and like being genuinely okay with it, and still being able to honor my wounds in a way that is like healthy and productive, but still moving forward. And I love that I get to combine that, because it's real. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like for me, like I feel better, and people are like, cool, me too. And I'm like, yeah, come on, let's go.
I think that's so amazing, and that's incredible. I like wonder, do men like, well, I don't want to ask this because this might be too personal, but do you like, are most of your clients women? Do men
Yes.
have like the same, like, I wonder, do men have the same, you know, it's obviously different, right? Like they're not shot, it's not their body, but like I imagine men might have trauma from this.
Yes, I mean, I think that they absolutely do. That is not my area of specialty, but
right. Yeah.
A lot of my women I coach through like accepting their way that their husbands or partners deal with it.
Right.
Not all of them are men partners, but you know, just like, because we're all different people. And like, for example, when our daughter died, I didn't want to leave the house, but I wanted everyone to come over and like sit on the couch and cry with me. And my husband didn't really want to do that.
Right.
He wanted to paint the house.
Such a man.
Totally. And I remember getting mad at him saying, you're grieving wrong.
Right.
He was like, I'll come and sit with you, but like, you need to understand, like me sitting out there for hours doing this, that's me grieving. Like, I feel like I'm making our home better so we can still raise a family, but still honor our daughter. And I was like, oh, well, thank you for telling me that, because I thought you were behaving incorrectly.
It's amazing that he was able to communicate that, because I feel like a lot of like, well, just my experience, like I just feel like men are like that, where they are physical, need to be physical, yes, and how they release things are different, but like, which is fine, but when it's not communicative, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have known if he wouldn't have told me. My husband is very good at communicating. He's very good at like being straightforward, and I'm like, oh, let's go all over the place, and he's like, let's focus, and I'm like, okay. So I have had a lot of people say that like, oh wow, that he could say that, but he has also dealt with grief, like prior to even us being together, his best friend died before I ever met him. And like, so he was kind of like a grief teacher for me, and him dealing with that. So he kind of came with the tools, and I was like, okay, well now I want the tools, but then the tools he gave me, I was like, I don't want to paint the house.
Yeah.
I want to sit and cry and eat cookies.
I need different tools for me.
Yes. So I do think that there is a whole different level that men deal with, especially because they're, you know, a lot from my experience and from my clients, like men want to fix it. They want to be able to, you know, there's so like, you know, with infertility, we couldn't fix the problem. We had to, even when we went and paid doctors to like make it happen for us, it still wasn't working. So that is also kind of like a grief for men of like, they have to let that go and be like, it's kind of out of our control. And that's huge.
Men are it's funny, men are such fixers. I grew up very close with my dad and my brothers, like mainly with men in my life. And I always just assumed it was my dad. Like I remember getting so angry with him and being like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to shut up and like let me Just let me vent. Let me tell you what I am thinking. Just stop trying to solve the problem. I just need to talk it out. And he would, to this day, still tries to fix it. And my ex is like that too, where he's like, they're fixers. And I'm like, sometimes there's nothing to fix, right? Sometimes,
yes,
sometimes you just need to feel whatever it is you're feeling and cry or laugh or whatever. And I just need you to shut up and sit there and let that happen for 10 minutes, you know? It's just.
Yeah. So I think that it's different with men and women, but I only really focus on women just because that's my experience.
Yeah. And I think, like we were talking about, that's what I think makes your business so great, is just your ability to be authentic. So how, you kind of touched upon it earlier with like courses, but how have you had to pivot your business since COVID?
So I launched it in it was, I launched it in April. So we had been shut down in Northern California for about a month. Didn't expect to still be shut down, but here we are. And I had envisioned like doing most things Zoom anyways. And the majority of my clients are not local, so I'm thankful I have that option. But I do have some local clients and I do want to be able to meet. And I wanted to have like online, or not online, in-person support groups. That's not really happening. I have pivoted to online with that. But I think one of the main things that when I was like, okay, we're still like in COVID, this is still happening, is when I really decided to put it online. Or I'm sorry, an online course. So people, because I really wanted to make it cheaper, because one of the main things people's like, I can't really afford it. And it was like, well, my coaching works. So I'm not really changing my price, but I want to be able to change and give it to people in a way that they can work with in a better space. And a lot of times people have more time right now. So like I said in the beginning, I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from my online courses, and I'm still coming up with more. I'm doing different ways of like how to grieve with like many ways. And so trying to just really focus online with it. But I'm so thankful my online courses were doing well, because I was like, is this going to work? And so far it's been doing pretty good.
What a crazy thing to launch a business during COVID. Oh my gosh. But I guess, the thing is if you're going to launch.
Wasn't the plan, but.
Now is the time, like so many people right now have the time to think and process like grief or like journeys. And I mean, I suspect that the people.
And I feel like whether they want to or not.
Yeah, you have
the time. And it's like, sometimes you have to sit with it.
I feel like I've been really lucky, because in some ways people are like, this is the worst time to go through a breakup. Like you have a breakup and you're like all alone all the time. I'm like, yeah, in that respect it sucks, but like, let's flip it, right? It's given me so much time and clarity to think about things, like, because I have the room and the space and the opportunity to process what's right for me and for my ex. And like, in that regard, I think it's like really a beautiful thing. And I imagine like a lot of your clients probably have time to stop and think and process. And
especially because like in the beginning of COVID, the fertility clinics were shut down. Like we had to stop, because we're working with a surrogate, and we had to stop that process for like 6 months because nothing was open.
Right.
And so I felt like, well, this is a time where we're all kind of in limbo anyways. And even if you're not getting fertility treatments, like it's still a weird time to be in. So it's like, my class helps you work through that and process some of those things.
That's awesome. I think that's really cool. I wish there were more. I don't know if you can hear me because you're frozen. My internet, it really blows. Damn it. Did I lose you?
Nope, I hear you.
I think I lost you for a second. My internet was like, I have this wireless diagnosis going on because my internet is shutting down all of the time. And I'm like, I'm going to track how many times you shut down during the day, so that when Xfinity comes, they don't think I'm a crazy person, because it always works every time. Like literally every time a technician is on
making it up, like I have proof.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I'm a nerd. I'm gonna track this. So, Okay, so I'm curious about the importance of like female friendships and female women in your life. How like has that shaped you? How has that shaped your business, right? Like going along this thing of like boss babes and other women. Like talk to me a little bit about that.
So, this is actually one of the main reasons why I started coaching, because I feel like a lot of women in my life were getting pregnant and I had a really hard time dealing with it. I got jealous, I was envious, and like was definitely taught that those emotions aren't good. And so I hid them, and then they would blow up in unhealthy ways because I was not acknowledging that they were there. And I lost some really important friendships in my life. And I wanted I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And like my friends could listen, but like I didn't have anyone that knew what I was going through, that had like that, that was like 4 steps ahead of me. And so that was the main reason that I started my coaching, because I wanted to be there for those women. And that this is one of the number one things that I coach on is friendships with women that want to stay friends with their friends that are pregnant or sister that's pregnant, because it's really hard to show up and be like, yay, I'm so happy for you. And I needed someone to give me permission to be like, it's okay that you feel awful. Like, it's okay. And I had not had that, because I was taught that like, you just show up for your friends and you go to their baby showers and you act like everything is fine. And that was so difficult for me, because and I think on the flip sides of my friends too, they didn't know how to deal with the other side of that, of being like, oh, I got pregnant really easily and Carrie's still trying. So I really wanted to kind of bridge that gap and help women deal with that, because I think women friendships for me are one of the most important aspects of my life. And when I lost one of my really good friends in the beginning of my infertility journey, like I personally feel like it was harder than like a breakup that I would have had with like a romantic partner. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know how to grieve it, because with a romantic partner, I could be like, you're out of my life. I'm putting you in this box over here.
See
But with the girlfriend, like we still have mutual friends, and it's like it was hard to be like, ooh, how do I go about this? And I really learned a lot from that, because I had to, number one, let it go, and number two, like, how am I going to deal with this and move forward and be okay? And then I had to like go out in the world and try to find new friends, which as an adult, you're like, oh gosh, it's like dating. You're like, I don't know, do I want to spend time with you? And the older I get, the less like slack I have for people when I'm like, oh, I do not want to spend time with you. I won't, And so it's like I'm pickier, and it's a difficult thing. So I think finding those women and like really nourishing and like feeding energy into those relationships, because with friendships I've never really had to like work on those relationships, but as we get older you have to. And so I think that once you find those like core people, and also being okay to like let people go, like that's an okay thing.
God, yes. I feel like it's so hard. I don't know. It's so hard to let friends go, but one of the biggest things I've learned since my breakup is that like not every friend is going to be there for you the way that you are there for them, which is totally okay. Yeah. Unless it's a consistent thing in your friendship, and like having to recognize like boundaries and being like, you know what, I'm okay with you not being in my life, and I'm not going to be guilty for letting you go. Not like some big dramatic fallout, right? Like, I hate you, you suck. Like when you're younger, right? When you need to let the person know why you're exiting their life. Like, it's not dramatic. Like, you'll always be nice and courteous, but like putting up boundaries. And I like have like been a queen of kind of having to learn to do that, because I want to always give all my friendships all my go, and I have Jewish guilt, which means it's also it's a struggle to like let go of friends, particularly for like, it's not like something happened, right? Like it's not like they did something mean or malicious. Right. It's so much easier to cut people out when they do that versus when they're, say, like just self-involved or like not supportive in the way that you need at that time in your life, and being like, it's okay. Like not all friends are created equal, and not all friends are, sometimes we're here for like just a good time, not a long time,
Exactly. And like being okay with that. And I love that you were talking about how like boundaries, because that was what it was for me. I wasn't putting up my boundaries because I didn't know how to do that. And so people were walking all over me, and then I was like losing my mind, and it was like, why am I losing my mind? And it was like, you're not taking care of yourself. And I think I think especially with my experience, when I started working on myself and like doing boundaries, people got really upset. And it was like, well, why are you getting upset that I'm taking care of myself? Like, what does that say about you?
It's always eye-opening to me when people don't get boundaries or when they get upset by them. I'm like, this says a lot more about you than it says about me. And it tells me that I am on the track to like the best path for me.
Yes.
And like,
yes.
I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes I spend so much time worrying about other people's feelings. And one thing 2020 has really taught me is that like healthcare for myself is like, it is at the end of the day the most important thing, because no one is going to watch out for you the way that you're going to watch out for you. So like you cannot, like I have to sometimes tell myself, you cannot give this person that, and it sucks that they need you, and it sucks for
right.
X, Y, and Z. But if they're causing you more mental health issues, then like
it's not worth it. Like, it's just not worth it. It's like, I like how you were relating it back to 2020, because especially right now is like my threshold for is so much lower than it used to be. And it was low before, but now I'm like, nope, I can't handle it. Not putting it on my plate. I can't do it. That's just not what's happening.
Same. It's just, man, female friendships are the most important thing in the damn world, but like also having boundaries and respect for those friendships.
And I think that when you do have boundaries and things like that, like it builds to the relationship, like it makes it, like I was a teacher for 10 years, and a lot of my really good best women friends are teachers, and right now they're just barely surviving. And so like I know that like Tuesday afternoon they can't meet up, even though for a while they could, and like being like, it's okay, like Friday nights for a teacher is nuts. So Friday nights, it's fine, you need to sleep, like we don't need to be on the phone, it's fine. And like allowing that for them as well, and being like, I get it, it's cool.
Right, giving yourself and your friends like grace and like being imperfect, right? Because friendships are imperfect things. There is no such thing as like the perfect friendship unless there's messiness involved.
Right. Especially because we're all growing. And I would hope that we're all growing, and that can sometimes mean in different directions. And what does that do for yourself? And like one of my best friends moved across the country, and I was like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? And it was like, this isn't about me.
For sure. No, but like, it's allowed to be about you a little bit, but like, I think, it just circles back to like, you have to be supportive, and sometimes you put yourself second when it comes to them, because they need to put themselves first, and that's what's healthy.
Exactly. As long as it's like a balance of something.
Right. Like, so you don't want a narcissist, and you don't want to be selfish and all involved, but there's like a healthy balance. And I feel like society puts so much pressure on not being selfish and doing things for others. But I think the reality of it is it's so important to be a little selfish, right? Like not self-involved all the time, but it's important to focus on what's right for you, for your success, for your health, for your success, for your business, for your success, for all of these things, because no one is going to make you healthy or successful except for you. So like taking that and making that your number one is important. It doesn't mean take away from these other things.
Absolutely. Yes.
So like, I guess as we're heading out a little bit towards the end of this, I want to know, like, what does being a boss babe mean to you? How has it impacted your life? And what do you hope to see from other boss babes or pass along or any other good stuff?
Well, this is very new to me, and I never envisioned myself like starting my own business ever, because I loved being a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher, and I was great at it, but I realized that I needed to shift away from that. And then when I took time off, I was like, well, what does that mean? And I was like, oh, I'll just hang out for a bit, but that's not me. Like I like to be doing things, and showing up for women is something that I've always loved, but never envisioned myself like getting paid to do. And now that I'm doing it, it is filling my heart with so much more than I ever expected. It's also extremely difficult. I was just talking to my husband yesterday when he came home from work. I was like, so I didn't do the dishes. Like I thought that I was like, I guess I should do the dishes in the morning. But like at the end of the day, I'm always like, oh, I'll just do it when I'm finished with this, when I'm finished with that. And he was like, but you run your own business, you're never done. And I was like, you're right. Like I'm never done. And I'm learning to like establish boundaries with that because I love it so much. I do it all of the time and I always have new ideas and like 9 notebooks going of like, this is what this one's going to be like. And this is what this class is going to be like. And so one thing that I've loved is connecting with other women that are doing their own businesses and thriving in these spaces and being like, how do you do it? And like, what makes you feel good and what doesn't make you feel good? And seeing other women thrive in a way that is healthy and successful. I love learning, especially because I'm so new. I'm like, who can help me? Tell me what to do. You know, like, when do you go to bed? Like,
Never.
and so I think, and I've connected with a lot of other like new business women owners and being like, what does this look like? And so, and creating that kind of like community over competition, especially with like other life coaches too, where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, but do we ever? Everyone's always like, I mean, I think about, I was a really good teacher for so long. I never knew what I was doing. You know, it was like, well, let's just figure out what happens today and go with it. And that is very much like doing your own business. I'm like, well, like I never imagined doing online courses. I never thought that was going to be a thing. I thought it was only going to be, you know, one-on-one person coaching. But then it was like, I need to shift, like things need to happen. I need to pivot because who knows when I'm going to be able to have a face-to-face support group again. And honestly, I wouldn't even be comfortable anytime soon, like having women face-to-face. I'd be like, do we all get our tests? Like, are we all wearing masks? Like, I would be nervous about it. So
Yes.
I want to be comfortable. I need to shift to make it. And I know I'm not the only person who feels that way. So like, what else can I do for that? And so I think really connecting with other women that are running their own businesses and being like, so like how crazy it is for you, because it's super crazy for me. But I also like, you know, I woke up like super early this morning, like pumped, being like, it's Wednesdays. I do a lot of my online meetings and I was so excited. And so I love that I wake up feeling excited for the day. That is a different feeling because I didn't feel that way for a long time teaching. I was like, oh God, I just went to bed.
That's amazing. It just means you're on track to do what you're meant to do.
Yes. And so it feels good. And I feel like I'm very lucky to be in a position to where like I can just try stuff and see if it works.
Right.
And I feel very lucky to be able to do that. And just being a part of women's growth is like the biggest honor I've ever had. And seeing women like thrive and feel good about themselves, like I keep saying this, but it fills up my heart in a way I always knew it felt good, but as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels so good.
I love it. That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad we had the opportunity to chat today and that you got to be my first boss, babe.
Exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm glad we got to chat and we got to learn a little bit more about you and your business.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you have a good rest of the day and that we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much. It was nice to see you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.